Welcome to Cancer Specialist Medical Minute.
With Dr. Rick and Dr. Danny.
I'm Dr. Rick.
And I'm Dr. Danny, and we're excited to be back for another episode of Medical Minute.
Rick almost sounded really excited when he did it that time.
I think he's getting excited.
Yeah, I think you got a book. You're cheating right now.
I have a book of jokes. Someone from the office really hooked me up here with the ultimate dad joke book, 501 hilarious jokes and puns.
If we make it to 501 dad jokes, my body's going to be on the floor in a puddle of tears.
It's going to be awesome. Let me give you one here, Rick. What do you give a sick car?
I'm not sure, Dr. Danny.
A fuel injection, obviously.
So, we're bringing another special guest here, someone who will hopefully will be way more entertaining than that dad joke. And she is a member of our CSNF family.
That's right, Rick. Today we have a social worker, Meredith Harlow, in the pod loft with us to talk about coping with your diagnosis.
Before we get further, pod loft, I feel like I have to veto this. I think anyone who was listening to this podcast just turned it off.
And I really stress that pod loft, I should just say pod loft.
He really read the script there.
Yeah, I was reading.
Man.
I was reading on paper there.
You liked pod loft last. I'll pull it up. You said pod loft. I like that.
Prove it.
I will.
Were my eyes rolling in the back of my head when I said it?
No.
Okay.
I don't think anyone else has pod loft. Am I right, Brenna?
I don't know. I know I got it from somewhere.
But that's okay.
I'm sorry to derail the conversation before Meredith walks out the door and leaves. Getting diagnosed with cancer is obviously a emotional and life-changing moment for everyone. But every one of our offices here at Cancer Specialist North Florida has a licensed clinical social worker on their team to help with everything from counseling services to financial assistance.
Today's guest, Meredith, is a licensed clinical social worker and the social work team lead and has been with our company for almost 10 years.
Meredith earned both her Bachelor of Psychology and Master of Social Work from Florida State University, and we won't hold that against her.
Go Knowles.
And she currently works at our Southside office.
Welcome to the pod, Meredith.
Thank you.
And I believe you did this on your own, volunteered for the podcast, is that right? Or did someone coax you into it?
I was strongly encouraged by your producer.
That's so unlike me.
But I've heard she's listened to previous podcasts.
She's
is that
listened
right?
to all of the episodes, she said. Well,
I have listened to some of the episodes.
Some of them.
wow.
That's right.
Full episodes.
So Meredith, I know we kind of touched on some of the many things that you do, but can you kind of just give us an overview of, what goes into becoming a licensed clinical social worker and kind of just walk our listeners through that process?
Yes. So there's lots of misconceptions, I think, when people hear you're going to see the social worker. Contrary to lots of beliefs, we don't all put people in nursing homes or take children away or anything like that. So we do employ licensed clinical social workers. That means that they have a master's degree in social work and that they've also completed 2 extra years after completing their master's in clinical supervision for counseling. So they all are really well equipped here to be able to go over with patients what their fears are, with concerns that they have. Lots of times there's lots of dynamics involved of families, of finances and things like that. So they're all really really well equipped to talk about those things and to really help people every step along the way.
Meredith, could you explain to us a little bit more about what a licensed clinical social worker responsibilities are and how you help patients through this scary time?
Yes, so a licensed clinical social worker is mostly trained in counseling. So they all have master's degrees in social work, but they have a 2-year, they have 2 years of clinical supervision at least in order to sit for an exam to become a licensed clinical social worker. So their expertise really is counseling, of therapy, and really addressing mental health concerns, which I think is really rare, and it's wonderful that we have them here in the offices. just because we know cancer really is an all-encompassing diagnosis. So, mental health is really important as well, and patients feeling like they have the support that they need going through such a tough diagnosis is really, really important.
From my perspective, one of the things that the LCSWs provide, it's obviously the patient and listening to them and taking care of their needs, but also the family as well. It really, cancer affects not just the patient, but their family members and caregivers. And I think, you guys do such an amazing job of incorporating their needs and sort of the whole dynamic of this family situation. Is that something you guys get trained on specifically, or is it something you kind of pick up as you go, or what is the thought process when you're looking at the whole picture of the family?
It's really both. Social work in general, we're looking at, the whole family system, the patient's whole life really. If that means that, they don't have a lot of family, if that means they rely more on friends and neighbors. But then absolutely, as you go through practice, a lot of us have experience working in hospitals prior to this, homeless shelters prior to this. So we have a really broad range of working with patients from all different backgrounds, all different types of social support, all different socioeconomic backgrounds, to really kind of pull together and work with people in really every aspect of life that's necessary. Absolutely. We counsel not just the patients sometimes if it's needed, their spouse, their children, and there are resources out there as well. But it is something that we try to really touch every aspect of life that's necessary.
A new cancer diagnosis can be a big financial impact or have a big financial impact on the patient and their families. How do you go about, helping patients through that and talking about what kind of help they have and options they have to help with payments for treatments and even getting to the cancer center and back and forth?
We do really like to try to use as many resources as possible. We meet with a patient, we do, again, talk about, what their family supports are, what their financial resources are, what their needs may or may not be. We really try to, I think it's such a tough thing when you're first starting that everything feels really overwhelming. So we try to talk about and ask the questions that maybe they haven't even thought about yet of logistics of how this is all going to work together and piece together. Our staffs have really fantastic financial counselors in the office as well that we work with in terms of trying to make sure that a patient is getting as much assistance as possible to be able to afford treatment. We definitely don't want anybody to not get treatment just because of finances. So there's different grants that we work with, there's different drug companies we work with in terms of trying to get patients to get the funding to be able to get their treatments. There's also, we have a wonderful foundation within our practice to help to pay for different household bills for patients just to offset the cost, knowing that again, all these co-pays add up. They have hospital bills, you have bills from outside places. So our grant is amazing and is just a lifesaver for patients a lot of times. And then transportation-wise as well, we try to utilize any community services possible to get people to and from, because again, we don't want that to be a reason why somebody doesn't get the treatment that they need.
Yeah, I always view you guys as sort of like the Swiss Army knives of care, in the sense that it's sort of like there's a problem, we're not really sure how to fix this, it may involve all these different things that, I don't know if Danny agrees, but from the physician side, sometimes we don't know the details, and we send them to you guys, and it's like this magical process where they show up, they have transportation, they have all this assistance and everything, and it's from a provider standpoint, it's super helpful and takes that burden off of patients so they can focus on the care that they need. And so I'm always amazed at what you guys do, because I think it's very difficult to navigate the ever-changing landscape of insurances and resources and, like you said, pharma and everything like that. So hats off is all I guess what I'm trying to say.
You guys do amazing work.
We have a great team. There's 6 of us now. We all kind of are spread across, we cover all the clinics. But again, a lot of us, the 6 of us, we are all coming from different places, all have this, different experiences that we are able to have kind of in our backpacks and little toolkits that we're able to use with different people. And, we talk to a patient and there may be something that we're not completely sure about. Again, we have this group behind us of experts that have worked in this field more so than another one. So it's got a really great team.
think one of the things I've learned is there's always these resources available, sometimes through insurance that the patient already has access to, or resources that they're entitled to, but they may not know, or and us as clinicians may not know. And I feel like you guys always kind of can say, "Oh, actually, did you know you have X available to you or Y available to you?" And I'm sure you'll get into some of those specific things that you touched on, some of them already, but just these resources that I personally didn't know existed. A lot of them, and that's a big deal.
Absolutely. I think, it's always an education. There's always something new that we're learning every day with things continuing to grow and evolve. And, but yes, whether it's Social Security and going through, that process with patients of applying for disability benefits, of, talking to patients about, maybe you do have short-term disability or long-term disability through work, but you hadn't thought to ask about that yet. Different things like that of Medicare and Medicaid and all the insurance questions of transportation options and benefits that, like you said, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh yeah, my insurance will cover that. But, a lot of times it will. A lot of times there are those benefits because there's a real need. So, absolutely.
It takes a lot of the fear away in terms of, keeping their households running and keeping everything running smoothly at home when they're, undergoing treatment that's, obviously had a big impact on their life and their emotional well-being. So you guys do just a fantastic job, I know, helping them out, and we appreciate you. I had a patient recently who came to me, and I, he came from the Southside clinic, came to the Beaches because he lived closer to the Beaches clinic, and told me that he was walking 2 miles a day to get to clinic. And I was, this day and age, that's not very common that patients are walking that kind of distance to get to their clinic appointments. And he's undergoing active treatment too. And, Rachel over at our clinic, she really took the lead and helped him out. And he has transportation every day to his appointments. So, once we recognize, I think, that patients need that help, you guys really jump on it and you're just on top of it and making it so that the patients aren't really struggling to undergo their treatments, and it's one stressor away from them. So
absolutely. I think, like you said, sometimes it is a daunting thing that you say you're going to see the social worker, but really and truly, we're happy to help. That's why we're there. So it's something that I think is pretty unique. I don't think a lot of clinics have the availability of social work staff to be able to help out with a lot of those things that are really necessary.
Do you see a big difference in patients that maybe you meet with on a more regular basis versus ones that you don't meet with or you're meeting for the first time? How often do you meet with patients?
It really depends. We try to make it as painless as possible. Some people it's every 6 months or so. Some patients it's really just as needed, that they know that we're a phone call away, and that's the goal, is that everybody knows that we're a phone call away. We're there as much or as little as you need to see us. And I do think for sure when we initially see somebody, they've just been diagnosed, we do see them kind of really settling into the process as things go along. Of, to begin with, they're so overwhelmed, there's so much anxiety of I don't know what to expect, I don't know exactly what even some of this stuff means. So really trying to help the patients to work well together with their doctors, with the nurses, make sure that they're bringing up any questions or concerns that they have, and feel like they're really an active part of their treatment, and not that they're just coming in and I have to do this and I have to do this, and just making sure they feel comfortable. I think the clinics are really great resources. I think that the nurses work so well together with the patients, and there's just kind of that family feel for them. So I think that as patients continue to come back for treatment, continue to see us in the office, I do see definitely a settling, a feeling of they get more comfortable as they come into clinic each time, and we learn their names, they know the names of all the nurses, and it's just really a cool thing to see. And then again, they know on the social work side of it that we're here if you need us. If not, that's okay too, but we want to be able to be with you every step of the way.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts of when I go to the clinic, because I work at the business office, so I usually only go when I have to take pictures of someone, which I know you guys love so much. Walking in and seeing a patient walk in and everybody greets them by name, like first name or hi, Mr. So-and-so, hi, Miss So-and-so. And the patients, you can really tell just how happy they are to see their care team and how special that is. And I think everybody does such a great job at making our patients feel like family and making the process easy. And
Well, I think just jumping back on what you said before, Meredith, the beginnings, the analogy I always use with patients when they're first diagnosed and coming to see you is it's truly like drinking water from a fire hose. I mean, there's so much information coming at them so fast from their doctors, from all the appointments, all the tests they're going through, the uncertainty. And no one, even people in the medical field, when they're in that situation, no one's ready really and prepared to handle it. So I think you guys do a nice job of synthesizing some of the different things that are happening on the outside and presenting it in a way that, hopefully helps put the patient at ease. So I think that's extremely important, especially at the beginning, to get you guys involved early rather than waiting until, the last minute.
It's definitely smoother when we're able to meet up front ahead of time. Again, try to anticipate some of the issues that may or may not come up that they're just so overwhelmed they can't think of even asking at this point. And kind of jumping on those things and trying to really, really solve everything that we can so that it's really a smooth, less anxiety evoking process. We know that it's just a huge change for the patient, for their families. The more that we can do to help out. We know that nobody wants to be in the clinic getting chemo. Nobody wants to have cancer. So if we can make it as smooth and as pleasant as possible and make it feel like more of a family environment, we would love to be able to do that.
And I think that's one of the strengths at CSNF is, we're in these offices that are all over the city, but each office has its own little contained environment with all the resources available to the patient. So they just walk down the hallway to talk to you as opposed to having, go to another campus or go to a different, wherever, or a phone call. It's I think puts a lot of patients put me at ease if I was in their shoes, and that, you don't, everything is in one roof. You feel like there's a cohesive vision of the whole team. It's not scattered in multiple different places. I think is a very comforting feeling, and I think presents itself as a unique aspect for a practice like CSNF.
Well, what I've noticed is there's a lot of costs associated with some of the new oral agents that have come out that, when we talk about supplemental coverage plans and talk about some of the added cost of oral therapies, and which is actually, you would imagine that it would be cheaper than coming in for IV infusions all the time. But oftentimes we're dealing with the biggest costs and the biggest financial impact of those oral therapies. And so, Meredith, you guys do a great job at helping guide patients through what their options are as far as applications for grants, applications even sometimes to the pharmaceutical company to have the pharmaceutical company pay for the drug. Can you give us an example of that, or talk about how you kind of approach a patient who doesn't have the money to pay after, they get their bill back from the insurance? This is your copay for the medicine. It's $2,000 per month, which is obviously unaffordable. How do you approach that?
So we have the pharmacy that's in-house, which is wonderful in terms of communication and being able to work back and forth with them. But yes, so typically they will immediately alert us and say, hey, this patient is starting on this new oral and their copay with insurance is $3,100. Mm-hmm. So which is really not that out of the ordinary, especially with Medicare patients. With Medicare, they're not able to use any sort of copay cards or anything like that. So it's almost always a problem with these oral chemotherapies.
Right.
So we will look at what assistance is out there available. We love to try to get grants for patients so that they can use their insurance benefits, and then the grants will pick up whatever the insurance doesn't. There's a few different privately funded grants available out there. And if we cannot do that, then we would utilize the manufacturer to see if they can't provide the medicine for free for the patient instead, which typically lasts for 12 months once they get approved for it. Also, the social workers are good at looking at insurance coverage in general. There's a program, it's called the Low Income Subsidy, that's available through Social Security that most people don't know about. But if the patient's income meets the guidelines for the program, then they'll go ahead and help them be put into the program. It takes a few months, and we can do something in the meantime. We can try and get a grant, we can try and get the medicine provided, but it would help them out with all of their medicine, all of their oral medicines from then on, and put a little bit less of a Band-Aid on it, and have a greater long-term solution to the problem that is prescription drug coverage.
So once they complete that application, they get approval, if they needed, a grant or provided drug to cover them for a few months, then that expensive medication, once it's approved, will be covered thereafter.
A lot cheaper.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great news.
Yes. So again, I mean, the team is very good at looking at, not just short-term solutions, but trying to look at long-term solutions for patients. So this isn't something that continues to be a stressor as they go on and go through treatment. And again, like you said earlier, it's one of those things that you may not even know is available. Most don't even know it's out there, but it's absolutely out there and readily available for anyone to apply. So they're great about letting patients know if they think that they would qualify.
So Meredith, for people listening to this podcast, Brandon tells me people do listen, so
They do.
allegedly we have an audience.
Meredith listens. So.
Yeah, she does.
Yes.
Occasionally, she said.
I will more. Yes.
All right.
It's fine. It's only been out
All
for
right.
2 months.
We're
so
looking
don't
for a
worry
review
Think-
soon.
There's like
Looking
fingers
for a
crossed
review.
behind your back. Yeah, that's not all. But for people listening who are in this situation, or their family members are in this situation, or friends are in this situation, what are some questions that they, in your opinion, give some examples of things that people should come in asking you or asking their providers to kind of maybe spark some of this conversation?
One of the biggest things that I see is that a lot of times not everyone is on the same page, the patients, the family members. And so I think that really we try to encourage them to, if it's something that patients only able to come in by themselves, making sure that they bring in a notebook, that they write down their questions ahead of time, that they have that ready to go. And so family members are coming in with them, making sure that they're all on the same page of what those questions should be for their provider when they come in, so that they're really asking those questions that they really want to know the answers to, and really maximizing their time when they are with the doctor when they come in.
And more so, I think when you're in that situation, like I can think of like 100 questions to ask, my doctor ahead of time, but when I go and see him face to face, I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something my mom always did with my dad. She has like 20 folders of just questions to ask. And, as she thinks of them, she just keeps it with her and writes it down. So, I think to that point for meeting with physicians or social work or the dietitians, whoever, if you think of something, even if it's 9:00 at night, write it down, even if it's just a note on your phone.
Absolutely. And again, when you're meeting with a doctor, we want to make sure too that the patients and the family members really are understanding, first of all, what their diagnosis is, what exactly that means.
I think, Meredith, where you help out definitely is these situations where, family members and the patient, of course, they haven't had really time to digest all the information and, talk to each other about what the significance behind it is. And when you meet with your physician, again, you may have all those questions in your head that you want to ask, but you may not get everything out. So I think you help coming in to play there and really having that conversation with the patient and the family. Say, okay, what do you understand? What did you learn from your physician? How can we help you, understand this better and really work through your diagnosis and treatment? So I think it almost adds to the clinic visit that we have with patients. To see you even afterwards to really go over those things that they might have, forgotten to ask and forgot to highlight during their visit with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, kind of going back, and if there are more questions now after that have come up, then we encourage them to write those things down. So next time they see the doctor, when they see the nurse, they can go back over those things. But just making sure that we really are making sure that patients and their family members really are understanding what's going on. So everybody's in the loop, and it helps us to be able to take care of them better at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then with patients and with their family members, we do talk about, again, just taking that inventory of how we're feeling today, of, are we noticing any sort of changes in terms of your mood, in terms of your interest in doing things that you used to enjoy doing before this diagnosis, and just kind of going over these mental checklists of what's going on, how we can help troubleshoot some of the issues that may come up that maybe weren't there when they first started, but they're starting to kind of pop up as treatment goes along.
Sometimes you, Meredith, and Rachel at the Beach's office, I've seen you play kind of a mediator too between physician and the patient, and there might be questions or there might be things that were brought up where it might elicit a little bit of anger, it might elicit a little bit of more of an emotional response, and you really help walk patients through that, facilitate conversations between us and the patient, And I think it just comes down to the patient and the physician understanding each other and, goals of treatment, were there questions that were unanswered, and you can help really play that mediator role, I think, sometimes. Well, let's talk a little bit about Meredith and her background.
Yeah, Meredith.
So Meredith, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up?
Why Florida State? I mean, yeah, why you're here.
But what brought you to CSNF?
So I am actually born and raised in Jacksonville, which is really rare. I am a third generation Knoll. So,
Makes sense now.
Listen, legacy. So, went to FSU. I initially wanted to be an attorney, and then about halfway through, I realized that is not what I would like to do. I love to help people, but not in that way. That's not my personality at all. So, did a little switch to the psychology background halfway through from political science, and then went straight into grad school at FSU and getting my master's in social work. And
But you actually graduated double major in 3.5 years?
I did.
I graduated
Wow.
single major
Wow.
in 5 years, so...
Had too much fun in college, Brenna?
Well, I wasn't a
Or
sorority.
she traveled, did
No,
some-
I was in a sorority. It's fine.
I was too.
Ooh.
Ooh.
All right. Well,
Dang.
We're not gonna,
Just also, in order to start grad school when I did, I had to
Yeah.
start in January. So that was a little bit of a push for sure. So did my master's through FSU as well in social work, and then worked at Sulzbacher homeless shelter for about a year while I was in grad school. And then did my final internship at St. Vincent's Riverside. So I was there for 4 years, working with initially infectious disease patients, and then switched to oncology. And then I got hired from St. Vincent's Riverside, got kind of recruited over here about 10 years ago. So I started in August of 2011. And it's just felt like home since then. So, and there were only 3 social workers at the time when I first started, and we've just grown, and so we've got a really great team these days.
And Meredith also sits on our foundation board. So I know we kind of talked about the foundation, but I like to plug it in every single episode and bring it up. Do you want to maybe talk about the application process just a little bit about that? Because it's not just for our patients. Anyone can apply.
That is true. So as long as you are receiving cancer treatment currently or have within the last 6 months, you qualify to apply for the foundation. There are some income guidelines as well, but we help to pay for things like rent, for mortgages, for JEA bills, car payment, car insurance, other necessities. We know again that cancer treatment can be expensive. People are getting bills from all over the place. A lot of times people are having to miss work or be on short-term disability, so they're not making their normal salaries and whatnot going through treatment. So the foundation also has a transportation grant for patients who are coming back and forth to radiation every day. So we provide gas gift cards for patients who qualify for that as well.
It gets utilized a lot, obviously.
It does.
A lot of our patients. I mean, it's a big ask for anyone to come to a doctor's office 5 days a week for potentially weeks and weeks, depending on the diagnosis. And I think having that available is very, very crucial.
It does.
2 big events that we put on each year as a company to help raise money for the foundation. Cocktails for a Cause. This year is July 22nd at Top Golf. So we hope to see everyone out there, maybe get some listeners out there. And then also the golf tournament, October 22nd as well. So the links for how to sign up for those will be in the show notes.
Sure.
Yes.
And you can email medicalminute@csnf.us if you would like to buy a ticket for cocktails. We are only doing pre-sales because COVID still is kind of a thing, but we're going to give it 1 more year.
Get your
okay.
vaccinations. Get your vaccinations.
Yeah.
Boom.
Meredith, thank you.
We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your time. Really awesome, and thank you for all that you do. You make our jobs a lot easier.
What do you think of Trae Young?
It's unbelievable. I mean,
You like that shimmy before you hit the 3?
it's so disrespectful.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah. Did you see that, Brenna? He did a little
I'll have to
shimmy
look
shake before he hit a three during the game. You know, I mean, and this is a playoff game. I mean, playoff basketball, you think the defense would be there, but he had enough time to shimmy and then shoot a three.
I just don't like the way you say shimmy. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
That's what I hear on. That's what I hear the announcers say.
Oh, okay.
What would you
I thought
call
you
it?
were keeping your ear to the streets.
How would you describe it?
No, shimmy's the right word.
You just don't want me to say it.
I just
You just don't want me to say
the way you
it.
said it.
I think because he pauses a little bit before he says
Lots
it.
of pausing.
He pauses and then he looks at one of us and be like, shimmy.
It's like
I'm pretty sure I didn't say it like that. And now I'm getting too close to the microphone.
Yeah, no, we can't hear anything now.
it was like you said it like you were reading off like when you go to like dictionary.com and you have to click on the how to pronounce a word.
Shimmy.
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 But yeah, Trae Young
He's-
is unbelievable. He's what 6 foot 6'1", so
Yeah, maybe. I don't think he can
170
dunk.
pounds,
Can he
so-
dunk? He might be able
Sure,
to
he's
dunk.
got to be able to dunk, but
Maybe.
it's pretty spectacular from a guy who just dominated in college at Oklahoma, but you didn't know if it would translate into the pros, and clearly it has. It's pretty spectacular.
Well, he had to model his game off of Steph. Had to. They're basically, very similar. Hit the three from anywhere. Good ball handling.
Yeah, I don't know.
All
It's
the
interesting.
above.
I think that's a good comparison. I also think there's a lot of Steve Nash in Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he racks up 13, 14 assists every night, and he's obviously the primary ball handler for the team. This is very interesting because he's not as good a shooter as Steph, but he certainly takes the same shots as Steph. But I think his passing is definitely probably his most underrated skill.
Yeah.
And for a guy that size, is because he's shorter than Steph. It's impressive.
He is. All right, we'll get into it.
Larry Bird.
Oh, so you want to go?
I
on?
tried.
Can I tell you actually another
Oh,
interesting thing?
another masshole rant? Oh,
They're
okay.
using- So I got to bring up Ben Simmons because that was a hot take. So he gave up a dunk in the I think Game 7, right? He was right under the hoop. He had Trae Young on him guarding 6 foot. This Ben Simmons is 6'11", right under the hoop. Didn't dunk it. Passed it to his teammate. Ended up losing the game. Might have been a play that would have kept them in the game. And then everyone's ragging on him, can't shoot. And there was a interview with Kobe Bryant, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, where he said, what's one thing you would, tell Ben Simmons to do? And he's like, shoot, get a jumper, shoot. You have to in the NBA. And that's what everyone's telling him to do. And the one thing he didn't do in Game 7 of the NBA playoffs, he couldn't shoot. And so they keep replaying that clip, and it's like, man, this guy's like, sky's the limit for this guy, but he can't shoot. So, I don't know. Feel bad for him. But I don't, because he's making a lot of money.
Yeah, man.
He's in the NBA.
It was the same thing coming out of college. I mean, everyone
Never shot. Yeah.
Whether he wants to do it or not it's kind of on him.
Yeah.
Or else this is the kind of ridicule you get when you have a very glaring weakness and it's on full display. But
Got to have that assassin mentality in the NBA to be like Kobe, MJ.
But not everyone wants to be Kobe or MJ.
Yeah.
Or is it a good thing?
I don't know.
Because if you're not as good as them and you have that attitude, it's
Yeah.
horrible for a basketball team.
Well, yeah. If you're not as good as them.
Because then you could be Dion Waiters. You may think you're as good as Kobe, but
Right.
you're not.
Yeah.
So you hurt the team.
Again, Larry Bird, man. That's all I know.
He was in Kobe's top starting five. Larry Bird was in his top starting five.
So
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So
what kind of feedback did we get on the masshole rant?
my extensive knowledge of basketball,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. No, they loved it.
OGs loved it?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Well, I called my mom after. I was like, Rick went on a masshole rant, and she was like, "Yeah."
Yes.
I told her the whole thing. And when you said, "Now Massholes love being called Massholes," she's like, "We do." I'm like, "I know you do."
Seems like the reverse Boston psychology.
Yeah.
You throw hate at them and it only makes them stronger.
Yes,
It's amazing.
exactly. I know. I did look up. I tried. I really tried in the last month to like
Brush up on your knowledge.
of basketball.
Uh-huh.
It didn't work. I just like an hour before you guys came in, I just typed in NBA on my phone.
Oh,
I was
God,
like,
that's embarrassing.
Jesus, should have started sooner.
Well, at least you're not like Danny trying to talk about football. At least you just don't talk about it.
Right.
There you go.
Well,
Well, now I'm not going to bring it up anymore. No more football talk.
you will.
Well, Rick's going to bring it up when the season starts,
Well,
but I'm not going to have a comment.
Rick and I will. Yes,
you guys,
will.
no. I don't know.
Yes.
But you could teach us about.
Maybe when the Browns win, I can have a comment.
Because we'll look at you and you'll do.
They should be good this year.
Although I saw OBJ on the treadmill, I did see that clip.
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, ridiculous speed,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Makes sense.
That's all I know. Yeah, got some good talent on the Browns.
There it
Do you
is.
know what OBJ stands for?
Odell Beckham Jr. Come on.
All right. Well,
All right, good. Let's end on a high note. What do you think?
probably good.
It's
Going
not
into the
it's not gonna
episode.
get better from here.
No,
No.
it definitely will not.
Thanks so much for coming back and joining us for another episode of Medical Minute.
If you have any suggestions on things we should talk about, question you'd like us to answer, or if you just want to say hi, email us at medicalminute@csnf.us.
And make sure you follow us on social media. Search Cancer Specialists of North Florida on Facebook and _CSNF on Twitter and Instagram.
Not going to even say it today. And as always, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time, and we hope you learned something today.
And remember, when it comes to your health, stay informed
Ask questions
and tune in next time.